Okay, guys, I want to say thank you for you guys joining me today. And I haven't made a video in over a week, and I was just mentally exhausted with my job and other things I have on my mind. But anyway, so lately, what's been happening in our country, you're well aware of. So it's the big screw up by Pete Hegseth, okay? And this involves a journalist from the Atlantic magazine by the name of Jonathan Goldberg. So Mr. Goldberg was in his car in a parking lot at a Safeway in the state that he was in. Okay, I'm not sure what state he was in, it doesn't matter. But the fact was, he was sitting in his car and he received a message to join this chat room called Signal, which to some degree has some privacy, but it's not closed off to the public. And what happened next was the biggest travesty and a breach of our national defense security that has ever happened in history. So before I continue, I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and to those people just visiting my channel for the first time. If you guys hear something that resonates with you, then please consider on subscribing. If you subscribe, please hit the bell twice so you get notifications. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and share. We'll be right back with more.
Suggesting anything so complicated.
So Jonathan Goldberg was sitting in his vehicle and he got this message. He's looking at it, and at first he doesn't understand what's going on, but he kept reading on and reading on, and then he finally figured out that he was mistakenly invited to a open chat that was taking place between Donald Trump's administration and himself. So after he figured out that they mistakenly sent him a message to join the chat room, he logged off, and the rest is history. So a couple of days ago, I think, or maybe 3 days ago, Pete Hegseth was getting on a plane, and journalists approached him about what had happened, and he denied that there were any high classifications going on, and that there wasn't no war planning taking place. So here we are now. It's Wednesday, so it's been over a few days since it happened, and a lot more stories have been coming out. And what this has caused is backpedaling by and other officials that were involved in the chat room briefing. What's happening now in the past few days? More stories have been coming out, and this was after Tulsi Gabbard was not answering the question of the Senate committee hearings that was trying to investigate what happened, okay? And later on, after I'm done with this, I'll show you the clips of Tulsi Gabbard backpedaling from what she was saying, and still there's some areas in her conversation where she's not being honest. There's no clarity about what she's talking about. And to me, this shows you what kind of people President Trumpet has in his administration, in his cabinet. It's embarrassing. And the whole world is watching us. What they're doing is they're calling this whole episode the Signal Gate. The Signal Gate. It's the biggest breach in our national security. For adding of Atlantic magazine and inviting him to the forum. So yesterday they were asking Trump while he was in the Oval Office how he felt about this entire incident, which was a breach. He said he had not heard about it, and that in his mind, he thinks that the Atlantic magazine is a loser of a company. It's not the best company there is. It made no profits. In other words, what he's doing is he's deflecting the questions that's asked by the journalists in the Oval Office, which is telling me that he's protecting Hegseth, a drunk, a womanizer, and a wife beater. The whole interview with Hegseth before he was getting on a plane, he was denying the fact that there was information on those threads that included war planning, target packages, lethalities, and how they were going to strike Yemen. I posed the same question to Mike Johnson, and you know what Mike Johnson says? Mike Johnson says, well, they're just doing their job. I'm like, excuse me? They were just doing their job? Their job was to include a journalist in on the chat room, okay, on an unprotected platform. They're doing their job. Revealing top secret missions is not anybody's job unless they were part of the cabinet. Their job was not to expose themselves to a journalist. So let's see what has happened since Donald Trump has taken oath and become president, the 47th president of the United States. His first 2 weeks, he was dismantling our government. He was firing everybody in the FAA. He was planning on shutting down the Department of Education. He was firing veterans. And what's the other thing he was doing? Oh yeah, he wanted to eliminate DEI from all governmental work. Why? Because DEI did not interest him, and he felt that his own people, white men and women, that fit the bill for him because they were highly intelligent. People under the DEI clause were not intelligent enough. What has he done in office since becoming president? He's cut our Medicare for 70 million people or more. He's given tax breaks to billionaires. And what has he done for American people? Zilcho, zero, nada, absolutely nothing. Okay? Why? Because him representing the American people and doing what's best for his constituents and for the Americans was never part of his plan. So now, back to this fiasco that's happening all across the news in our nation. From day one, it's been a total nightmare, guys, for the American people, not knowing whether they'll receive another Social Security check or not. Where's Trumpet Boy in all this? He's running off to Mar-a-Lago playing another round of golf, while we get threats from the Yemen's government and Iran threatening our Navy in the Black Sea. All this since fat-ass loser Donald Trump became president. Is this the America we want to live in? No. Is this what we woke up to? Yeah. It's not what the American people voted for. How much more evidence do we need to see that what we have in office, President Donald Trumpet Boy and his administration, are all lunatics? They're rogue. This morning, President Trump is stunned into silence, okay? Because there's more revelations and the cat is out of the bag. More information about the conversation that was being had on this private chat is out in the open, and people like Tulsi Gabbard, like I said in the beginning, is backpedaling. If you or I were the American president, how would you react, okay, if your head of the Defense Department invites a journalist to the chat room on a public platform, and then releasing types of aircraft that's going to be used, F-18s, and when the first strike is going to take place, and that strike drones are being launched and targeting terrorists, that NQ/9s will be the first bombs to definitely be dropped early, and trigger targets, etc., etc., etc. This entire administration is nothing but reckless. Reckless. So yesterday, during the Senate committee hearing with Tulsi Gabbard, she totally denied that there were any high classification conversation and instructions held in this open forum that was private and was only supposed to be with top officials of Trump's administration. But today, after more information were released from the Atlantic Journalist magazine, and today's hearing with Tulsi Gabbard, this is what happened. Listen to her.
Yes, Ranking Member. My answer yesterday was based on my recollection or the lack thereof on the details that were posted there. I was not, and what was shared today reflects the fact that I was not directly involved with that part of the Signal chat, and replied at the end reflecting the effects, the very brief effects that the National Security Advisor had shared.
So it's your testimony that less than 2 weeks ago, you were on a Signal chat that had all of this information about F-18s and MQ-9 Reapers and targets on strike, and you in that 2-week period simply forgot that that was there. That's your testimony?
My testimony is I did not recall the exact details of what was included there.
That was not your testimony. Your testimony was that you were not aware of anything related to weapons packages, targets, and timing.
As the testimony yesterday continued on, there were further questions related to that, where I acknowledged that there was conversation about weapons, and I don't remember the exact wording that I used, but I did not recall the specific details.
But yesterday, when they were questioning her, she had this cocky grimace look on her face. And she was almost like smiling a little bit, being very cocky. They're asking her questions and she doesn't recall this, she doesn't recall that. And she kept repeating herself a lot, trying to divert her answers and not answering her, just beating around the bush. Okay?
Defense Secretary or others after this specific military planning was put out and say, hey, we should be doing this in a skiff?
There was no classified material that was shared in that.
So then if there was no classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways. These are important jobs. This is our national security. Bobbing and weaving and trying to, filibuster your answer.
When you and I and our families travel on an airplane that's going to be a few hours long or even 10 hours long, we never forget where we're going and where we've been and what we were doing in those countries. Not Tulsi Gabbard. She flew to another country, maybe an Asian country. She doesn't even know. She says she has to check her schedule. How can you forget what country you went in on a government-assigned trip? How can you forget? This entire administration is so bogus. It's fake. It's not real. It's not real.
Was actually in Russia during this chat discussion, was he not?
I was not aware of that.
Was he on his personal phone at the time?
I don't know.
Well, it's my understanding that he was indeed in Russia. Director Gabbard, you were also traveling during this discussion, correct?
Yes.
And where were you?
I was traveling through the Asia Pacific region. I don't recall which country I was in at that time.
You don't remember the country?
I'd have to go back and look at the schedule.
It's rogue. Not only do they have the wrong people in office, but they have people that are underqualified. They were so worried about shutting down the government, firing people from the FAA, firing FBI agents, firing people from the CIA, because supposedly they were DEI hires, because DEI hires are not qualified. They're not smart enough. But Trump's administration's very smart. Look what the hell's going on. The first couple of weeks since he came into office, all the planes that crashed and people that lost their lives. For over 9 years, during other presidency, including Trump's first term, there were no fatalities, no planes crashed. During his last term, he didn't strip the government to the extent that he did now. But before I go, I got one more piece of news to give you guys. So, it's public now that J.D. Vance and his wife are going to Greenland. Why? They're going to Greenland under a humanitarian tour. They're going to go watch the dog sled race. But for some crazy reason, the truth came out. He told the journalist there that he's really there to check out national security, that he's going to go and visit the Air Force bases and get a grasp on things. And then he said, we're going to take Greenland whether they like it or not. And the Prime Minister of Greenland said, we're not interested in having anybody from Trump's administration, including President Trump, here in Greenland because it's an assault on their dignity. So these are just instances of how Trumpet Boys administrations operate. DEI is actually the Trump administration. They're the ones that's under the DEI. Okay, there was some mistake happening here. Maybe these people in his cabinet, they should have been in DEI. Maybe they would have been better at their jobs. Maybe they would have been trained more professionally. But in a nutshell, they don't belong in the White House, and neither does fat-ass Donald Trump. I hope I gave you guys an earful, but you know, there are worse people out there on YouTube doing worse than me. I'll see you guys again soon.